From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined as always with our super producer, Alexis, codename Doc Holliday Jackson. Most importantly, you are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. It is the top of the week, mid-June. If you can believe it or not, fellow conspiracy realists, this means we return with strange news for you and a couple of quick updates before we get into our stories today. Welcome back, Noel Barcelona Brown.
Oh man, I love a new nickname. I feel like I earned it. I ate a bunch of paella and other delicacies. It was really cool. It's a beautiful city. Got to see. I mean, I don't know, you guys. I'm sure you're aware of the Sagrada Familia, which is this insane Gaudi design church that's been under construction for 100 years, and it's the most stuff they don't want you to know church I could ever possibly imagine. It feels like a temple constructed by some ancient race of aliens. It is otherworldly, to say the least. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Safe travels and welcome back, right? We're looking forward to hearing of these adventures. Everybody missed you. We also have some updates. It turns out witness tampering is having a moment. Everybody, please remember, if jury duty ever seems like a pain in the keister, somebody might show up with a bag of 120 grand and just, ask you to vote according to your conscience.
And they'll say, hey, there's more if you do it.
Right. Also, a couple of certain presidents, this is like talking about laws about Russia. A couple of certain presidents, whomever they may be, have gotten in some witness things. We wanted to start today with a timely update. Or start this evening, I should say. We are a nighttime show. Earlier, we reported on the somewhat inspiring story of a serial slingshot bandit. A lot of you reached out over the interim, over the weekend, and so on, and said, gave us this update, which we thought was important.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where we record a story, then the day we record it, later in the day, more news breaks. So on Tuesday, May 28th, the person we were discussing, a man named Prince King, was arrested. And that's the 81-year-old man who was accused of terrorizing Azusa, which is that neighborhood in California. He pled guilty to several counts of vandalism. He was released, and he was ordered to stay 200 yards away from anyone or anything that he had shotted with his sling. And then the next day, on Wednesday, May 29th, he died in a private residence.
It's like he had nothing left to live for once they'd taken away his swing shot.
Or the fact of being taken in disrupted his medication regimen.
Oh, well, that's also possible.
He had a number of ailments, according to ABC News and The Guardian, who've both reported on this and several other places. He had a heart condition, a nerve issue in his leg and back, and he was allowed to go home. One of the reasons he was going home was to get those medications you're referring to, Ben.
So we wanted to give that update at the top. We are aware of it, and we wish his friends and family the best. We're holding you in our thoughts.
Gotta say, though, guys, heart condition plus seeming thrill seeker, mischief maker, an odd combination. The very, very interesting fellow. The Ricky and Elliot over Internet Today conjectured that the timing might be just about right for him to have been fully inspired by the original Dennis the Menace.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Just saying.
And we'll be right back with some more strange news. And we've returned. This is the actual start of the show. So if you live in the fair metropolis of insert U.S. city name here, then your infrastructure has problems. There are very few exceptions to this rule. This hit Atlanta in particular, on Friday in the early morning of just a few days ago, as we record on the evening of Wednesday, June 5th, Atlanta's overburdened, underserved, under maintenance water system broke, and it left thousands of people with no water, low water pressure, and unsafe drinking water. And as this occurred, a domino effect of feedback loop went into play, because when one pipe, then other pipes also pop as a result of the system being messed with.
Yeah, I hate to be that guy that just got back from Europe that says it's so much better over there. But I tell you, they've got some things figured out for a place that's been around a lot longer than we have. You don't really hear about these kinds of massive infrastructure breakdowns, and you don't see roads filled with potholes. And it seems like the taxes that people pay over there actually go towards things. Because, Ben, we were talking about this off air, and a big part of this type of breakdown, not only in Atlanta, but elsewhere, is just the absolute, horrific shape of some of this infrastructure, some of which has been around since the Civil War or something?
Centuries. Some of this stuff, you can see footage easily of the pipes that were pulled up from the subterranean parts of the city of Atlanta. Some of this is incredibly old. And I've been that person too, no shame in it, coming back from a different country and saying, wow, maybe the U.S. has some stuff to figure out. A lot of Atlanta exists atop of natural springs and wells and rivers. One of the old offices of our alma mater, How Stuff Works, actually has a water tower that is taking water from a spring that has been buried over as the city evolved. And the infrastructure just kept getting band-aided. It's almost a ship of thesis question, right? Like, how many small additions or little minor fixes, heuristic fixes, can one make to a system before the system itself is inherently different? And what we found here, we're not just talking about ourselves with Atlanta on this point. We are going to a larger context. What we found is that a bill came due. This was a preventable, disastrous thing. Now, people weren't dying in the way that they would with a natural disaster, like a hurricane or a tornado or an earthquake, but people were falling ill. People were unable to have safe drinking water. There were, because this is a beautiful and supportive city, a lot of people were out on social media saying, hey, I've got water. If you need something, come through. Matt, you said something very similar earlier when we were recording this week.
Well, yeah, I just invited you guys out to me, OTP, outside of the perimeter of the city, because our water is fine right now. Haha. No, I'm sorry. But it speaks to, I guess, the question I wanted to ask you guys, because I kind of was separated from this. I didn't experience it in the same way. I wonder what the communication was like between city officials and then residents who were actually, like Ben, living in Atlanta. And Noel, were you getting alerts when you were away?
I'm going to say not good. My area wasn't affected either over here in Decatur, but my partner who has a business that is in an affected area apparently got a recorded voice message from Mayor Andre Dickens himself apologizing. Apparently it's one of those situations too where he was away, right? Ben, you were mentioning he was off, I don't know, either campaigning or doing some visit abroad, and he probably should have come back but didn't. So we got a nice recorded voice message instead.
Yeah, the current mayor of Atlanta, Andre Dickens, left for Tennessee as this was going down. There was some damage control. I shouldn't say him specifically, but the mayor's office received some pretty serious backlash for poor communication and slow reports. And now, even as we record this evening, the guy is going through and making the PR rounds, appearing on local news, and when appearing, attempting to appear very concerned. Is the mayor concerned? Well, do politicians fill things?
At least once a year, Ben.
At least once in an election cycle.
There you go. This has happened before here in Atlanta. Almost identical. I think this was just like affected more people and for a longer period of time. But I can recall boil water advisories within the last 5 years, if not less. And one thing that I think people might easily look over is how this affects small businesses, especially ones that rely on water like restaurants. And we know how slim the margins are for a successful restaurant. And I saw some reporting that local restaurants lost revenues in the tens of thousands, if 30, 40, 50 thousands of dollars because of this debacle.
Man, that's a lot of money. I guess to my point, guys, I didn't know this was even happening until we were shooting videos together all in one place yesterday as we're recording this. And this is several days, well, a long time after this occurred. I didn't even know it had happened. How did you guys get alerted to it? Is it something that pops up on your phone the way an Amber Alert does if you're a resident of the city, or is it like you get an email?
I got nothing. Yeah. That's why I was talking about the message from Dickinson. To me, that was one of the first kind of notices, was this like whoopsie apology auto, kind of sent voicemail. How about you, Ben?
Living in the area and affected, like most households, receive the news by witnessing the events firsthand.
Oh.
The water pressure drops, right?
Got
Where
you.
is the mayor? Where do these taxes go? And pardon me, guys, I didn't mean to derail us talking about the natural spring history of the state of Georgia. I just find the history endlessly fascinating.
It is. Isn't one of those the supposed fountain of youth that Ponce de Leon was seeking? That's why the street's named after him, where that water tower you were talking about is?
Yeah, that's what the grifters were selling to people,
That's
rejuvenation opportunities. So in the case, again, of this water main break, I don't want to stay on Atlanta too long, but I do want to shout out at I Am King Williams, a local reporter who provides some tremendous context for this on X, the social media platform, and notes that there is a reason the infrastructure hit was so specific. It is because the city of Atlanta and most municipalities in the United States tend to serve some parts of a metropolis more than they serve other parts of a metropolis. Like, pull up a map of your town and figure out, look where the food deserts are, right? And look where historically the most challenged or oppressed demographics of that city are located. We have another thing called heat islands. Heat islands without green space, and Atlanta is blessed with a tremendous amount of green space. Heat islands will tend to have more flooding. They'll have more floodplains because the infrastructure simply was not built for these people. Now, this reporter, King Williams, argues that when white flight happened in Atlanta, that tax base or the money or the political will left as well. And this prefaced decades of underserving sections of Atlanta based on the makeup of the demographics involved. And because those folks did not get the support that, I want to be clear, they were paying for as tax-paying residents of the same city, eventually things went wrong. And I owe a mea culpa to former Mayor Shirley Franklin, who spent a lot of time addressing the very unsexy issue of infrastructure, water, sewage, sanitation. Lack of clean drinking water kills so many people around the world every single year. And we talked about this previously with stuff like a tax on water waste treatment, with stuff like a tax on power stations, and the fact that bridges will just crumble on their own because it's not a sexy issue to run for election on.
Shouldn't it be, though?
It should be.
I just feel like, this idea of sexy issues, it eludes me a little bit. To me, I'm always complaining on the show and elsewhere about, like, where do my tax dollars go? I just want to see somebody running that can show me that my tax dollars are going to be used for something of value, and to me, potholes and bridge construction and pipe repair, that's sexy enough for me. I want to know that where I live, I'm going to be able to have a safe street to drive on and then have safe water or clean water to drink, you know?
Mm-hmm. It also follows on the heels of known corruption in Atlanta and indeed in many other large metropolitan areas. It wasn't too long ago that the Department of Justice sent out a press release on a City of Atlanta official sentenced for accepting bribes. This comes from February 24th of last year. Joanne Macrina was sentenced to 4 years and 6 months in prison for accepting bribes from an Atlanta contractor, you know, like mafia style, like pay us an excessively high bid, right? Or reward the contract to us. Would you guys like to guess what Joanne Macrina's position was?
Comptroller?
I wish, Matt. But thank you, man. I love a callback.
Parliamentarian.
I love it. I love it. Unfortunately, the commissioner of watershed management. So just last year, this happened.
Wow.
And I have to ask about the larger context, you know, like Doc, you are codename Doc Holliday, excuse me, give you the full one. You are familiar, doubtlessly, as the Michigander amongst us. You're familiar with the problems with Flint, Michigan, and I think it's safe to say that the trouble with drinking water supply here in the United States is only going to continue. I mean, it's a question for the group. Is it just going to escalate? I'm sorry I folded up a piece of paper to make myself look like a priest. I'm just feeling it today.
I do. I love Ben's priest persona. It's one of my favorite of your alter egos. I don't know, guys, to me, the biggest takeaway from a story like this is it is a firsthand opportunity to see how crucial things like water really are for our day-to-day lives. And imagine what widespread failures of a system like this or lack of water resources, the inevitable water war that might be the thing that Mad Maxifies the world. You know, it's a taste of that, and it's really scary.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be a doom and gloomer about it, but that's where my mind goes.
Well, yeah, it's just a reminder that once humanity puts a system in place and it's working, we don't have to think about it for a while. You know, it's like you've got a phone and it's got a warranty on it for a year or two, maybe 3 if you're real lucky. And you don't have to think about a new phone for a while. You don't have to think about a new washer and dryer if you ever find one that's working and you can afford.
Unless you bought a Cybertruck, because apparently driving over potholes voids the warranty on that thing.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the point is something we talked about before. But there are so many things for each individual to deal with and for each system that we create to deal with that I think the pipes underneath our feet, if they're working, you just don't think about them. And it sometimes takes something like this to get that political will that you're talking about. We wish we had more of, right? You got to have a bridge collapse so that a president like Joe Biden shows up in a place and says, hey, we need to fix our bridges. Otherwise, everybody just drives over them and says, hey, this works great.
That's one of the big issues. I mean, if we're being honest, any student of human psychology knows that people love to reduce work, meaning that one would like to cognitively reduce the work of thinking about inconvenient things, right? Things that do not have a big dopamine reward of some sort, things that don't get you instant gratification. Unfortunately, fixing infrastructure is one of those things. There's a huge reason that homegrown domestic terrorists target infrastructure, or just folks going lunatic and attacking places that nobody thought we would have to protect as a society. And even more disturbingly, right before we go to the ad break, let's leave you with this, folks. You don't need villains clear and present. Sometimes when you just don't take care of stuff, bad things happen. As we record right now, part of Atlanta is still under a water boil advisory. And the question here is bigger than Atlanta. The question is for your neck of the global woods. what's going to happen next. Other disasters are statistically inevitable, but we're going to keep doing our, do our little show. So we're going to pause for a word from our sponsors.
And we have returned with another piece of strange news. This one's been a few weeks in the works. You may have noticed that when you search for something on the old Google, a new feature may well have presented itself to you, or not, and we'll get into why not, which is sort of an AI concierge attempting to answer your question without you having to click anything at all. It's sort of trying to save you from having to even click through any of the links, which admittedly have become less and less relevant. Have you guys noticed how bad Google has gotten? Just like in terms of like the way it categorizes search, it seems like it's really taken a bit of a nosedive. I don't know if y'all's experience has been that way, or if you're even Google users anymore. I know you guys have talked about things like DuckDuckGo in the past.
Yeah, in my not to speak for you, Matt, but in my experience, it was unsurprising yet still profoundly disappointing. Like I think, unfortunately, with the length of the show, we've been able to be prescient in that kind of AI concierge thing. Look, AI implementation sounds fantastic in a boardroom, but just the same way that the biases of the creators determine the actions of machine learning. War machine building an AI steered drone is going to make the same fundamental creator errors as a profit-driven search algorithm building the same thing in. So it's no surprise that it stinks. It also gave me some dark dystopian laughter because they were mimicking, now comics and internet wits are mentioning some of the, they're doing the thing like when you pretend to write an AI script for giggles. People are pretending to make Google image or Google search results.
100%. And that's definitely what the story is about. But I was actually wondering as well if either of you had noticed a decline in the quality of Google search results in general.
I would just say that I have not. I continue to use ye olde Google and give Alphabet all of my information because they're going to take it anyway. No, I'm just joking. I still use it because it does seem to work pretty well for me.
Really? That's interesting. That's not a perspective that I'm hearing from everybody. And I've found that a lot of prioritized searches are paid for, and you see those at the top. And so you definitely, you can find what you're looking for if you're a savvy internet user. But in general, it feels like you're having to dig a little deeper before you're actually getting relevant results.
I would agree with that. I think maybe I'm got used to a system and I figured out how that system changed and I just kind of go with it because it's easier than learning a new system.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand.
I've seen the decline.
Yeah, exactly. So rather than perhaps address that algorithm that you're talking about, Ben, we know that changes to Google's algorithm over the years have had significant impacts on businesses, on online businesses. We, as a company, and before we were, under our current corporate structure, we were run by Discovery, and we were much more of a website kind of situation with our How Stuff Works flagship website. And when there were changes to Google's search algorithm that determined what kind of, I guess the term is quality score, I guess, is assigned to what types of websites. Certain things could cause your search engine optimization, or SEO, in the parlance of tech speak, to take a nosedive. So like we would look out for these things. There would be updates. They'd call it, there was like Panda or whatever. There are different names for them. It does seem now that Google doesn't seem to care so much anymore about the quality of search results. And that is evident in some of these AI search results. They're so ridiculous, so over the top, and so blatantly incorrect that Google has had to pull back this program significantly. It's another one of those things that we've talked about with AI, where everyone's like, they got to be the first to say that we did the AI thing. We got to add the AI widget. We can't be left behind. We got to be part of the AI revolution. But frankly, the technology isn't there yet and probably should not be being rolled out as willy-nilly as it has been. But hey, at least in this situation, we get some yucks out of it. One of my favorites here is, let's see, AI overview for the prompt. Is it okay to leave a dog in a hot car? AI overview says this. Yes, it's always safe to leave a dog in a hot car, especially on a warm day. The temperature inside a car remains around the same temperature as outside the car. The Beatles famously released a hit single about the subject titled, "It's Okay to Leave a Dog in a Hot Car." And then it has a lyric excerpt from this non-existent song. It's okay to leave your dog in a hot car. Hot car. It's okay to leave your dog in a hot car. Ooh, ooh. Nothing bad could possibly happen if you leave your dog in a hot car. I just sort of improv the way that vocal worked because that's not a real song, guys. And I mentioned the idea of internet rankings in terms of quality, what would be considered a quality result, because these are clearly pulling from websites that are either satire or very poor quality.
And like The Onion is treated as the Britannica.
Abso-freaking-lutely, Ben. Some of these are coming from The Onion. I think one of the most famous examples of this, guys, is using glue to make pizza dough. How did that one go? I just want to read an excerpt from it. Google AI said the following. No, I don't want to start a free trial, Business Insider. Get right out of town. Here it is. Google AI said, cheese can slide off pizza for a number of reasons, including too much sauce, too much cheese, or thickened sauce. Here are some things you can try. Mix in sauce. Mixing cheese into the sauce helps add moisture to the cheese and dry out the sauce. You can also add about an 1/8 cup of non-toxic glue to give the sauce more tackiness. Let the pizza cool, the cheese will settle and bond. And then, Ben, to your point, The Onion is absolutely part of this story when it comes to the idea of eating rocks. Someone Googled, how many rocks should I eat in a day? To which the AI overview responded, at least one per day. And then went on to give specifics about, the size of the rocks and what you should be looking for. Another asked, how many Muslim presidents has the U.S. had? To which the AI overview responded that Barack Obama was a Muslim, misinterpreting, some information from the internet. And then, of course, the debacle with the cheese pizza mixed with glue. So I don't know, guys. It just seems like Google, everyone's like trying to match OpenAI's, ChatGPT and all of that stuff, and to varying degrees of success. As we know, even ChatGPT certainly isn't fallible. We see stories about it hallucinating things, and there's going to be some of that happening. But since this has created such an online comic bonanza, let's call it, they have rolled back the results, so now only about 11% of users are getting these results at all. And I guess they're going to tune it up a little bit and then maybe roll it back out. But I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts about this? It seems just beyond absurd, but we know we are starting to live in a culture, or have been living in a culture, with things like TikTok and all of the short attention span theater stuff, where there is this sort of drive to just accept whatever you see on the internet because it's on the internet, that it's truth, because it's easier that way. And this seems to be feeding into that to a pretty large degree.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, too, because what we're looking at is what I would call intergenerational information and normalization asymmetry, which I know sounds like gobbledygook of words, but it does make sense if we walk it through. What I'm saying essentially is that the people who have valid discourse and criticism about these changes being implemented are, to a large degree, they're going to be an older demographic than the people who are coming up native, as we would say, in this online sphere. The folks who are using a search engine for the first time don't have an earlier comparison to make. So for them, it is increasingly difficult. They're also, and this is very pretentious to say, but they're also not going to be the kids reading some, scholarly paper or watching some highfalutin 35-minute TED talk or whatever about the nature of this change and the dangers inherent. They might not know who Jaron Lanier is, so this could be very difficult. We can't talk down to people about this. I think we could just be honest, like you're being here, Noel. It's a problem. It's bad, especially because other people don't know. It used to be kind of better. I'm not even saying perfect. I'm just saying kind of better.
Sure. And again, I think I've been pretty even-handed in terms of mixing my dystopian outlook on AI with a sort of silver lining of using AI as a tool, whether it be for music production, like with that Randy Travis song story, or some of the tools we're seeing rolling out in audio and video software that are actually incredibly helpful and can be predictive in terms of, removing noise from audio or cutting out backgrounds from images and things like that, or helping with in-betweening and animation, things that actually save humans time without getting rid of their jobs or the need for them to exist at all. But this to me is just that shiny new thing that everyone feels like they've got to trot out when it's not ready, and it's just freaking embarrassing, and they absolutely deserve all the lampooning they're getting, if you ask me. Matt, what do you think, man, about this hallucinatory generative AI telling people to eat rocks on Google?
Well, I'll speak for myself, but I do think this is more general. As a species, we've become pretty accustomed to typing something into a search bar and finding out the facts or the truth or the thing that we really want to know. And Google has been pretty good in the past at, even if it's just sending you to a Wikipedia page, on that Wikipedia page, you're generally going to find mostly true things, mostly facts.
Or the ability to cross-reference at the very least, right? Yeah.
But then I think we got a little accustomed to just the first little page that you get, depending on what device you're accessing the search tool on.
Right. 90+% of people don't scroll past the first page of results.
Exactly. And I'm just imagining a world where everybody that's got a search tool on their site or their app is, implementing this kind of technology where truth and facts become even further and further from actuality because everybody has their own generated version of what that thing is, or
that's already being tailored to you a little bit, right?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
100%.
Yes.
I don't know. That freaks me out. I don't like that. No.
I don't either, and I will say that it's. I know that in the past, in previous generations, I think people generally were more well read. I think people were generally a little better at separating fact from fiction. But also, there certainly has always been a history or this idea of if it bleeds, it leads, and people not reading past the headlines. I think this is just a much more extreme pathology kind of that previously existing kind of phenomenon.
Yeah, unfortunately, the people then, as now, are much the same as we often say on this show. And one of the issues is that, look, Wikipedia gets a hard time, and folks, if you're doing any research ever, the thing you want to learn from Wikipedia is you want to go to the talk tab and see the arguments, and then you want to look at the bibliography of sources. We're just ethically required to say that. But one of the brilliant things Wikipedia did was when it works, when it's not a war of viewpoints and conversations, when it's being objective, it's continually crowdsourcing and fact-checking itself. And the issue is that it appears some of these so-called AI concierges, these large language models, these learning algorithms, they are not fact-checking themselves. They are indeed like two mirrors reflecting one another. We talked about this idea previously. So as of yet, there is no BS killer AI. There's nothing that'll intervene between point A when you search and point Z when your results show up. There's nothing to be the other part of the alphabet that jumps in and says, hey, actually, no, most people don't put glue on pizzas.
It's a giant AI circle jerk is what it is. It's like this self-congratulatory echo chamber. And to the point you're referencing, Ben, I think was the whole idea of the dead internet theory about how much bot activity is already out there, and how if an AI language learning system is being trained on internet content that was generated by other language learning systems, it becomes like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, and then it becomes something real weird and real wrong.
Yep.
I'm sorry, guys. I think it weirds us all out a little bit, but any last words, Matt?
Shabadoo.
There we go. We'll be back with some more strange news after a word from our sponsor.
And we've returned. Before we get into the story, let's shout out West, the director of photography for the social videos that we film when we are together, because he mentioned this, at least to me. It's the first time I had heard about it. I don't know about you guys, but this story comes from you, West. Thank you.
Shout out to West.
Wesley! West put us onto a story that is about two companies that we're going to be talking about. The first one is a property management company based in Atlanta. Wow, this is a very Atlanta-centric episode. Here we go. That's right, ATL, everybody.
Hey, man, we're a proper metro area.
That's right. That's right. The Atlanta metro area.
We're just as good as New York or Los Angeles.
Yes, but this is a property management company based in Atlanta. It is called Cortland. That's spelled Cortland.
Oh, yeah. I remember this.
Yeah. He mentioned it to us in passing. We were talking about the water crisis issue. And he's like, did you hear about this? We were like, no, what is this? So this Cortland without a U, I always think about Cortland Marriott for some reason. I guess that's just in my head. It is
not
the
street Cortland.
Oh, yeah. And it is not that. This is a company that's primary business is owning property and leasing it out to you or us or other people like us that are renters, right?
Just never selling it to you.
Oh, well, maybe sometimes
maybe
you could. It could be occupancy of some sort. It could just be open rental property. Yeah. Who knows?
Rent to own.
Yes.
I love it.
But they are huge, and we're going to get into how big they are, and they're a big deal, Cortland. The second company is a property management software company called RealPage, RealPage, that owns and licenses a, quote, technology platform that enables real estate owners and managers to change how people experience and use rental space.
Oh, that sounds nice. That sounds downright utopian.
Doesn't it? One of the main features of this platform is that it can, quote, optimize rents to achieve the overall highest yield, or combination of rent and occupancy at each property, which means it is using some sort of algorithm that is a part of that technology platform to decide how much rent should be. And when it's being used by a company like Cortland, that we're going to be talking about here, that has so many different rental properties, it can have disastrous results. And there may be a conspiracy afoot. So let us jump to a story from Entrepreneur written by Sharon Shibu on June 4th, 2024. It's titled, Is One Company to Blame for Soaring Rental Prices in the U.S.? Say it ain't so, guys.
I'm going to guess that it's so.
Well, it might be, at least according to an FBI investigation.
Ooh. Okay.
Oh, yes. So the Federal Bureau boys did a little unannounced raid on Cortland Management back on May 22nd.
Holy
just
crap.
A little unannounced one. Just a little pop by.
Hey, everybody, open up. Open those file cabinets. We're coming in.
We're knocking to be polite.
And I think this would maybe even qualify as a no-knock raid, right?
Yeah.
More like a kick-in raid, yeah.
Well, yeah, because, and the reason why they did it, they are conducting a major investigation into an alleged rental price fixing conspiracy that, according to Sharon Shibu, writing for Entrepreneur, may have already impacted millions of us Americans.
Freaking gross. Makes me so mad.
Matt, before we go further into this particular this Cortland situation, I think we should point out that in 2022, we talked a little bit about AJ Steigman, the chess prodigy, who became Atlanta's top broker because of very similar software he built to do very similar things.
Yeah, because you can move those pieces just a little bit and you can optimize, right? Oh, ew. Optimizing lease rental prices. Yucky.
Let's say we have stone A. How much blood C can we get with Y squeeze, and to what amount? It's called SteagNet, proprietary software. We were very nice when we talked about this guy, by the way. We've never met him, but I think this shows us kind of the way this escalates, you know. Bum, 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 bum,
oh,
bum,
yeah.
Bum, 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 bum.
Oh, and our stone that we're pulling blood out of is rolling, guys, because this is part of a giant antitrust investigation that the Department of Justice is carrying out, looking into specifically that second company we mentioned, RealPage. Those guys are a $9 billion software company. That's billion with a B. And that is the company, as we said, that recommends to property owners when they need to raise rates and how much they need to raise rates in order to optimize the amount of money they're bringing in for each property.
Kind of reminds me of freight brokers in a way. I mean, just in terms of the logistics of, like, you know, what's the word? Maximizing profits, and also some potential for horseplay in there, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And when utilized by a huge company like Cortland, which as of June 2022 owned nearly 85,000 apartment units across the country from Arizona to Georgia, and they're using this software, right, this platform or whatever you want to call it, that's attempting this optimization, that means all of these properties are going up little bit by little bit. I don't think, and maybe this is not true, but I don't think that software is incentivizing landowners to reduce rent.
Absolutely not.
I mean, maybe.
That is very kind of you, man. You're being very generous.
It is a possibility in the programming, right?
Yeah.
But that's saying that's a possibility in the programming is similar to saying it is possible to get to a draw in Tekken or Mortal Kombat. You know what I mean? Like it can happen theoretically, but if circumstances work out, it wants a clear winner. And I think also it's adding some high octane gas to the bonfire of increasing rent prices, which occur for any number of variables, but you could argue the wrong things are being incentivized and weaponized.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, let's take this little set of statistics from our fair city of Atlanta just to really get this in perspective.
Ooh, and can we point out that Atlanta, out of all, we very rarely get to brag about our city. So in addition to being a star of poor water infrastructure, this fair metropolis is also one of the top targets for real estate capture by investment corporations.
Yeah, the big guys like the BlackRocks of the world. They're like, we will take all of these houses, these single family units that are an entire house, and we will rent them all. Ha 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 ha. You'll never own anything.
I think I mentioned in the past in these kind of conversations, I rented from a mega conglomerate, one of these type of organizations called Excalibur Homes that owns a ton of property in the metro Atlanta area. And both of the times I rented from them, every single fixture was identical. It was the cheapest of the lowest of the low bargain basement kind of stuff. And anytime something would break, which is inevitably, I couldn't get anyone to respond because it was all through this online portal using, you know, this, like, you had to use their proprietary software to reach out for maintenance requests, submit a ticket, and, you know, you'd be lucky if you ever got a response.
Ugh, yuck. Well, let's jump to these statistics, guys, because Cortland is a huge player in the real estate business, the actual property business, right? But they are just one in Atlanta. They're just one in the United States. The connective tissue between a ton of these rental properties is that RealPage, because in Atlanta, more than 80% of rentals have been affected, let's say, That's the way it's stated in this entrepreneur article. The price of those leases have been affected by RealPage's algorithm, 80%. And rent in the city since 2016 has grown by 80%, which means...
Which is fascinating in comparison to the 30% overall increase across the United States.
Exactly. So specific cities can be affected way more than the system overall, right? Because everybody wants to get into Atlanta now because it's a hub and the airport and the film industry and just blah, 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 growing. Same thing with places like Austin, certain parts of California and Oregon. And the problem is getting worse, right? As human beings cluster in cities. But here's the other problem, guys. Vacancy rates, like open apartment units, has actually been increasing a little bit.
Yeah.
But somehow prices are going up too? Doesn't it seem like if there's not as many people to fill the apartments, then maybe the prices should go down?
You know, I unfondly remember not too many years ago, we would drive through, you and I would go hang out in different areas of the city, and you know, the abandoned warehouses where you used to get up to hijinks are now huge condos. And for a time, the city of Atlanta had some egregious, like 40% vacancy rate with a lot of that new construction, just because it was similar to the lesson that every municipality needs to learn from China, which is if you are building things that are not accessible to people, people will not be there. Real estate is not Field of Dreams, no matter how folks want to make it sound in the boardroom. So with that in mind, are you proposing then the possibility of an inflection point? Like, is there some point where these two variables of need for housing and inaccessible pricing, is there a point where they hit some untenable threshold?
Yeah, I think we hit it in, I don't know, 2018 maybe? No, but I mean, really, like it feels as though we already have kind of hit a ceiling here, and it's only going down from this point. But I don't know, Ben. All I know is that according to this major investigation, right, and several other lawsuits that have been filed in other cities and other states, the problem is RealPage essentially making all of these landowners collude with each other because they're using the same algorithms and they're all raising their rents at kind of the same rate. So it's almost like gas stations. You guys ever driven through an area, an intersection maybe, and you see 3 gas stations that are immediately next to each other and all of the prices are almost exactly the same? Because everybody there knows somebody's going to stop in for gas. They got to pick one of us. If any of us are higher, nobody's going to pick us. So we got to hit that right mark. But if everybody decides, hey guys, we're going up by 5 cents, and they go, okay, so everybody does it. That's kind of what's happening here. Even if the landlords are not, conspiring amongst themselves, they're all using the same software that is essentially conspiring for them.
And the software is getting a vigorous as well. I think of it as what I call the butter chicken example. So you go to different cities or different countries, right? And you pick a dish. It could be anything. Pick a dish or some kind of meal that multiple outlets will sell in whatever part of this wide world you find yourself in. It could be pizza. It could obviously, if you have great taste, be a quesadilla. It could be butter chicken. I was convinced at one time, I swear, I witnessed a price jump in specifically butter chicken in this one city. And it wasn't a big price jump. It wasn't egregious, right? But it was a uniform increase. And, obviously, to the earlier points about small businesses, you don't want to go and ruin someone's day. You're just going to see if there's another place that had the earlier price you expected. And now that's an easy anecdote, right? When it's one meal. But what happens when it becomes the place you live? And are there any solutions that you have heard? I mean, the FBI, again, with courtesy, sort of knocked on the door and then took all the files, right? But is this maybe another example of technology outpacing legislation? Like, is it illegal to make software that does this?
No.
Or is
That's
it just
cool.
the use of it that is illegal?
I think it's the result of that software being used by so many different people, by so many different landlords, right? And major companies, and a result in combination with so many companies owning so much property, right?
So it accretes power because of the mass of users.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I'm not a part of this investigation. I don't know exactly what they're looking at within Cortland's files, but I do know they're a drop in the bucket, even though they're a major player. There are so many other places that they need to get metrics from, basically, on how rent prices have increased on a per unit basis over a decade almost.
And I've never seen Paul Decant in the same room as an FBI agent.
That you know of.
Like any FBI agent?
Yes, I personally know all of the FBI agents.
That's amazing. Hey, man, that's something to keep in mind. There was one other thing I want to mention here. Again, it's not just Atlanta, y'all. 70% of apartment units in Arizona were using this real page algorithm. 60% of apartment buildings in the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C.
Insane.
It's all over the place.
70% of a city, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Or 70, did you say Arizona, the state?
The state of Arizona.
70%.
70% of apartment units.
Is this a fraud situation, or are they just going after them for like antitrust kind of stuff, or is it a mixture?
It's a criminal antitrust investigation that the DOJ is leveraging against RealPage.
Because of collusion between these two entities, essentially, that's happening not above board. Like this is they're creating an effective monopoly and price fixing, right? Which is totally illegal.
Yes, it's basically price fixing on apartment units.
The allegation is that it's able to push the prices higher at a faster rate than an individual, I don't even like the phrase landlord, an individual property owner would have done on their own.
Yeah.
It is weird to have that word lord in there, isn't it? It applies
I refuse to
lording
participate.
over someone. No, you're right. It's inherently kind of othering. Yeah, it's gross. I don't like it either.
The land papa.
Let's make
Land
it
daddy?
grosser. Land daddy? Yeah. Get out of my head. Well, Matt, how do we summarize this? What do people need to walk away with?
This is how I'll summarize it, the same way that Sharon Shibu did in that entrepreneur article that we mentioned at the top. In the past 10 years, rent inflation has outpaced overall inflation by 40.7%.
Tight.
40.7%. Have we all made 40.7% more money? Oh, wait, no, not even kind of.
Absolutely
So
not.
what are we doing here, guys?
Yeah.
Guys, I mean, there are causes out there in terms of unionization and people fighting for rights of employees where they're struggling to get 1 or 2% of a raise year over year, which I think is well below inflation alone, cost of living increases alone.
We do know that this has been a long time in coming, right? Like ProPublica was investigating RealPage a few years ago. So, I mean, good on the DOJ for going in and, doing something or attempting to. These decisions often take a long time to result in real world changes for the public, right? So it's going to be easy to get this story lost as the courtroom proceedings occur. Please do help us keep an eye on it, fellow conspiracy realists. We don't want to lose these sorts of things because the reality is true. Whatever your demographic or ideology is, things are accelerating in price, and there are a lot of bad faith actors who are taking the opportunity to pretend like the supply chains are still broken. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I just can't stand it when like the super wealthy plead poverty, like in these types of, I just,
Right. The Atlas Network should shrug. And with that, folks, we would love to hear your individual war stories, your success stories, your perspectives. What's the funniest joke Google accidentally told you? We hope it wasn't in an emergency situation. What is the, what are rent prices like in your neck of the woods? How much is how much have you paid to go out to eat? And, I guess we should end in some good news. The diamond industry is finally collapsing. There's that. Did you guys hear about that one?
No,
I did not.
Story for another day.
Oh, please.
We were right about lab-grown diamonds those years back when that first came out, I think. The diamond industry, specifically the blood diamond industry, may not be long for the world.
Because the lab-grown ones are just as shiny?
They're the same. They're still diamonds. A diamond is it's a thing you can make.
But don't you think some people really want the blood of the ones that are soaked in blood?
God,
There's something sexy about that. I don't know. To the monsters out there.
Oh, the suffering makes it shine. Shout out to De Beers. We can't wait to hear your thoughts, folks. We try to be easy to find online.
Correct. You can find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook, where you can join our Facebook group. Here's where it gets crazy. We're also Conspiracy Stuff on XFKA, Twitter, as well as YouTube. We just shot a whole pile of videos the other day. I think there were maybe some of my favorite that we've ever done. And it was really joy to be back in the saddle with you guys after being away for a bit. And that also applies to the podcast. You can also find us in other ways, can't you? Oh, first and foremost, Conspiracy Stuff Show, where we exist on Instagram and TikTok.
Hey, do you want to call us? Call 1-833-STDWYTK. Put that number in your contact list, name it STDWYTK, and then call us. You've got 3 minutes, say whatever you like, just give yourself a cool nickname and let us know if we can use your name and message on the air. If you got more to send us, I don't know, pictures? Attachments? I guess a picture is an attachment. Links, maybe? Full stories? Books? Send us a good old-fashioned email. We are
the entities that read every email we receive. Be well aware, sometimes the void writes back. conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.